Hey guys, welcome back to another art video. So this video has the final 3 Speckletone colorings I will be doing. These are specifically 3 different tones that were my favorites, so I set them aside specifically to do self-portraits on them. So the 3 Speckletone papers that I'm working on are cream, sand, and oatmeal, and I'm really excited to finally get this project over with because when I was working on part 4, I was starting to get tired of the whole process of making these videos because I pretty much had to dedicate 2 full days out of my week just to make these videos. It's pretty hard coloring them, and I really do take my time coloring them and trying to make the scenes look really refined. I also managed to make a makeshift pop filter because I noticed when I was listening to my previous videos that the popping sound was getting quite frequent and annoying too, so hopefully this works. Pretty much all you need is like a plastic ring and some nylon fabric to make it, so it's pretty simple. So for the first coloring, it was done on cream paper, and I just drew me working on my graphic novel. For the scarf, I wanted a yellow to orange ombre sort of look, but that didn't end up working out because the darkest orange that I chose wasn't blending into the regular orange, so I ended up just leaving the dark orange strip there at the end by itself. It did end up working out because it sort of looks like the dark orange strip at the end is part of the scarf design, so I still think it ended up looking pretty good at the end. And so for the poster in the corner, I mostly used water-based markers to give it a more hand-drawn sort of look because essentially it is a drawing within a drawing, so I couldn't give it the same sort of shading style that I was giving to the rest of the image. And so I stuck mostly with water-based markers, although for the sky and parts of her outfit, I did still use my alcohol markers. And for the first one, I decided to leave the wall blank because I really wanted like the texture of the paper to show through, and I really wish that I did this sort of coloring technique with all of the tones because most of the tones I was coloring on for this whole series, like you can't even tell what the tone of the paper is because I filled it all with ink. And that's specifically because I was trying to make this scene look more believable, and so I had to tone the entire piece of paper. But it really, like, you can really appreciate the texture of the paper when you see the paper by itself alongside an inked drawing. In the end, I really liked the finished coloring. I think all the colors I chose really complement each other and it looks really vibrant and colorful. Usually what I was doing when I was choosing out these colors is I was just looking at my color chart and I was selecting colors that I don't normally use, so I was trying to stay away from like really neutral colors and I was trying to pick out more vibrant and pastel colors, usually the highlighter colors though that I rarely touch. The second tone I was working on is the sandpaper, and this doesn't mean that it's actual sandpaper, it's just the tone of it. So this paper was a bit grayish, like it had a grayish undertone. So because of the grayish undertone, I ended up going with a candlelit scene, and I drew me with a slith. A slith is like a fairy, but it's made out of light, so it doesn't really have any human features or like any miniature human hands and feet or anything. I did end up drawing like 2 little feet just to make it look more like a fairy, but it's essentially just like a little creature made out of light with wings. So that's pretty much what I was drawing, and towards the end of the video you will notice that I struggle a bit with trying to get the glow around the slith. I was trying to make the glow look bluish, but I was having trouble with that. So how I was trying to do that was I took my distress marker in Picket Fence, which I was usually doing throughout this entire series, and I put some of the ink from that marker around the slith, and then to make it blue, I took a Spectrum Noir light blue marker and I was trying to color it over the Distress Picket Fence marker. And my distress markers are water-based, so usually alcohol markers can work on top of water-based markers, and also water-based markers can work on top of the alcohol markers. It won't blend into like each other's different markers, but it can lay on top of them without affecting the underlying tone or the underlying like ink. So usually that would work, but I found that the Spectrum Noir marker was actually taking away some of the distress marker ink. So that can only mean that there is water inside the Spectrum Noir ink. And I found that to be very interesting, because when I was doing my marker comparison video, I figured out that the Spectrum Noir markers performed really poorly, and I kept wondering why, because even though the Pro markers are fine tip marker, they perform much better. And I think it is because the Spectrum Noir marker has water in it. So that's definitely something to look out for. And again, for the poster on the side, I use mostly water-based markers, except for the sky. And I just noticed that both the first two scenes look very similar, like I'm in the same position holding a book with a stack of books to my side and then a poster on my upper right hand side. So it's interesting. I think I was just starting to lose creativity at this point, and I just wanted the series to finish, so I just ended up going with what was in my head at the time. And in the poster, I know it looks like just a bunch of trees, but really what it is, what I was going for was a castle made out of trees, so maybe something that like the wood elves would live in or something. But it could like disguise itself as a regular tree, so no one would know that it's actually like a castle or a place where people could live in. So that's the kind of idea that I had for that poster. And I was kind of having trouble with the lighting situation because I never really colored in a candlelit background before, so I kept switching between cooler and warmer light colored markers just to get that sort of shading, that candlelit shading effect. In the end, I think I got it pretty on point, although it does look like there are multiple light sources, not just that one candle. It looks like there's also like several other candles, because otherwise the scene wouldn't be that brightly lit. I also wanted to leave out parts of the paper blank, like just so you can see the tone of the paper, but that was kind of hard to do, especially since it's a very dark setting. So I kind of did end up having to cover the entire sheet with ink. Lastly, on the oatmeal paper, which was the final Speckletone paper, I drew a epic explosion scene. I kind of rushed this one a bit because it was the final coloring and I just really wanted to get this over with. So I did rush it a bit, and I did manage to give myself a whole bunch of muscles, which I really don't have. I don't work out that much, so I pretty much have noodle arms. But yeah, I just wanted this character to look like really dominant and like she can handle herself. I did end up liking the hood design that I had for this outfit, so I might actually reuse this outfit for a character either in my graphic novel or in a later project. And I also managed to design a really simple crescent spear blade, although most of it is cut off due to the angle of which I drew her in. But it is definitely an interesting weapon that I would like to reintroduce later on. So for the explosion, I was having a hard time, especially because of the dark tone of the paper. I couldn't get much contrast, and so what I ended up having to do was I took my Recollections opaque marker in yellow and I was just spamming it everywhere to try and make the explosion look more believable and also increase the contrast I think in the end it does sort of look like an explosion from a distance. If you look up close, it looks really messy because the Recollections opaque marker has acrylic ink, and acrylic dries really fast. So I wasn't able to merge larger areas of where I was applying the ink. I couldn't blend it all together. It just dried as soon as I hit it on the paper. And I did end up leaving the bottom of the coloring just the blank paper. So again, you can see the contrast between the textured paper without any ink and of course the paper with the detailed coloring on it. So that concludes my Speckletone series colorings. Thank you very much for watching, and I was thinking of doing like an overview video where I go through all of the Speckletone colorings and I go through which ones I enjoyed and which tones that I didn't really enjoy working with that much. But I feel like that might be redundant because I might talk about things that I've already talked about in these series videos. So if you guys want to see that, then go ahead and leave a comment and then I'll consider making that video, because I feel like nobody really watches my actual art videos, they just watch my haul videos. So I don't think people would be interested in that, but if you guys are interested, then I'll definitely look into making that. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.